Hey guys, it's Miss Wills. Yes, before you ask, I have a cold and I sound like a frog on this video. Sorry. Alright, the other day in class we started the Ancient Israel unit, and the first thing we started with was the Ancient Israel map. So we did a bell ringer in class where you had to label the places on the map without peeking to see if you could remember where some of these things were located. Alright, so we're going to move on to the next standard because this was standard 6.39. So we're moving on to 6.40. Alright, today in class you received a set of standards for all of the unit of Ancient Israel. You can glue 6.39 on your map if you would like. The one that you're going to need today is 6.40. So trim this one out, and we're going to glue it on the next page of your spiral notebook. Now make sure you don't lose these other standards that are still attached because you're going to need them later in the week. Alright, once you've got that standard glued in at the top, you're also going to receive a worksheet today that is about the Israelites. The very top of the worksheet says Lesson 1, Beginnings. And I have actually written some things on there about the standards and some information about a couple of people you may have heard of before. So the first thing that you need to do is cut this worksheet out, trim it up, cut it in half, and you're going to glue each page on a piece of paper in your spiral notebook. Yes, you can trim it down. And actually, you're going to be taking some notes along the side. So, you might want to save a little bit of space because we're going to be adding some notes on the side of our notebook, and we're going to be adding notes in some of these blank spaces. Alright, once you have that glued in, you're going to be, like I said, taking some notes and following along with me as I read the article to you. Okay, once we get the article read, then we're going to do some of the questions that are on the side. If you hear an answer as I read it, and you want to go ahead and write that answer down, you can do so. I'm also going to stop you at some points, and I'm going to have you take some notes. Alright, so you got it? Good. Alright, let's roll. Lesson 1, Beginnings. Around 1800 BC, a group called the Israelites appeared in Southwest Asia. The Israelites were different from many other groups at the time. They practiced monotheism. This means they believed in one God. Other groups practiced polytheism, the worship of more than one God. The Israelites also believed that God sent prophets. These prophets were messengers who shared God's words. The Israelites wrote about their religious beliefs and history. Some of these writings became the Hebrew Bible. These beliefs eventually became a religion called Judaism. Today, the followers of this religion are called Jews. So, if you trace this, and if you go back here, this is asking you to trace the migrations from Mesopotamia to Canaan, okay, and which is later called Israel. We're also going to trace on this worksheet right here how things happened. Alright, so one of those prophets was Abraham. So now I'm right here in this first box. God told Abraham to settle in Canaan. A shortage of food later forced the Israelites to leave Canaan. Many Israelites moved to Egypt, where the Pharaoh enslaved the Israelites. Alright, now I'm right down here where it's kind of hard to see on the slide, but I'm on Abraham. Jewish belief states that the Israelites descended from a man named Abraham. The Hebrew Bible says that God told Abraham to settle in Canaan. God promised that Abraham and his descendants would always control Canaan. Abraham's grandson was also named Israel. Jacob had 12 sons. His family eventually divided into separate family groups. Called tribes. Jacob's 12 sons became the leaders of the 12 tribes of Israel. A shortage of food later forced the Israelites to leave Canaan. Many of them moved to Egypt. Eventually, Egypt's leader, the Pharaoh, enslaved them. The Israelites had to work at hard labor. They prayed to God for freedom. The Hebrew Bible says that one day God spoke to a prophet named Moses. God told Moses to tell the Pharaoh to let the I can't read today. Sorry. Let me start that over. Now I've lost my place. Fabulous. Okay, I'm just going to start with the third paragraph. The Hebrew Bible says that one day God spoke to a prophet named Moses. God told Moses to tell the Pharaoh to let the Israelites go. The Pharaoh refused, so God sent 10 plagues to Egypt. Plagues are events that cause great problems for many people. Eventually, the plagues convinced the Pharaoh to let the Israelites leave. The Pharaoh then changed his mind. He sent his army to catch the Israelites. The Hebrew Bible states that God parted the Red Sea so the Israelites could cross. Okay, we have a couple of questions on that page that I want you to answer. The first one being, what is a prophet? Yes, if you've already written that answer because you heard me read that, then I want you to go back if you did not write it in a complete sentence and write that answer in a complete sentence. So you might start with, a prophet is blah, 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 blah. Alrighty? Then when you get that one done, go to the next one. According to the Hebrew Bible, why did God send 10 plagues to Egypt? Yes, I do want that in complete sentence too. So if you need to use this area and then roll on down here to this area, you can. Now when you get those questions answered, there's a couple of things that I want you to do. We're going to take some notes here. Okay, if you happen to have a handy dandy highlighter or you have a coloring pencil, you might want to use it right about now because we're going to highlight a couple of things in this worksheet. Okay, if you go back to your standard, it says examine the development of the ancient Israelites. Okay, I'm assuming that this development of ancient Israelites means where did they come from? Alrighty? So let's go back because our article talks about that. Right here in beginnings, I want you to highlight beginnings. Alright, and the very first sentence says that around 1800 BC, a group called the Israelites appeared in Southwest Asia. I want you to highlight that because this tells you right here where they were. Alright, they appeared in Southwest Asia. Now you know where something else is located. So maybe a place in Southwest Asia that maybe we just studied that starts with an M and rhymes with Mesopotamia. Yeah, maybe. Alright, so they started in Southwest Asia, or they appeared in Southwest Asia, and they believed that God sent prophets. One of those prophets I have written here for you was Abraham. So I need you to highlight his name. Now, I know when I highlight, you can't see that, but you will be able to on your worksheet. Okay, now, there's a very important fact in there as well that tells us where the Israelites descended from. Okay, real quickly, I'm going to erase these things so that I can highlight a little bit more. If you look in the third paragraph, it says that the Jewish belief states that the Israelites descended from who? Oh, can you read it there? The Israelites descended from a man named Abraham. And I want you to highlight that as well, because this information is going to come back to you at some point when I ask you in class, oh, I don't know, for a bell ringer or maybe an additional point on Class Dojo. It's going to, maybe you'll have a question that says, who did the Israelites descend from? And where did they first appear? Because you know what? That kind of sorta begins to answer, that begins to answer this question right here. Examine the development of the ancient Israelites. Alright, so as you notice as well, I have right here standard 6.40, and if you want to, you can go ahead and you can write standard 6.40 here as well. Now, I am not up at my Promethean board using my stylus. I'm writing with my mouse. So don't complain. I actually think that's pretty good, writing with a mouse, since a mouse is not used for writing. Okay. Alright, so we're moving right along now. Alright, so you should have this question answered, and you should have this information highlighted, And one more thing that I want you to do is right here where it says type here, you're actually going to write here. I want you to write that Israelites appeared in Southwest Asia, also known as blank. You better know what that is. Starts with an M. And are believed to have descended from Abraham. Alright, so if you can't fit that right in here, you can put it at the bottom, you can put it at the side, you can put it wherever you need to. But I want you to write Israelites appeared in Southwest Asia, aka, and are believed to have descended from Abraham. Alright, we are moving over here to the next page now. Okay, so continuing along with our story, not an epic, because that would be a poem. And this might be about a hero, but it's a story. Alright, here we go. When the Egyptians followed, they drowned. The journey of the Israelites out of Egypt is called the Exodus. If you have your handy-dandy highlighter, I want you to highlight the word Exodus right there. Exodus means to exit. The Jewish holy festival of Passover celebrates their freedom from slavery. During their journey, the Israelites received a covenant or an agreement with God. The Hebrew Bible says God promised to guide the Israelites safely back to Canaan. The Israelites promised to follow his teachings. The teachings are known as the Torah. These teachings later became part of the Hebrew Bible. The 10 Commandments are part of the Torah. A commandment was a rule that God wanted the Israelites to follow. The laws of the many nations are based on principles in the 10 Commandments. Okay, if you have your standards still laying there, that would be this sheet right here. You'll notice that I have written beside your worksheet standard 6 point, whoops, that made me dizzy. 6 point, whoops, that made me dizzy. Let's try this again. Okay, right here you have standard 6.41. Right, whoops, here you have standard 6.41. So on that page where you glued this second half in your spiral notebook, I want you to glue in at the top standard 6.41. Okay, once you have standard 6.41 glued in, I want you to highlight the word monotheism in that standard. And guess what? Right down here is monotheism. And if you know what monotheism is, and I think you do, then I want you to write right beside monotheism the belief in, whoops, God. Sorry, having a hard time problem. Okay, so there's a number goes in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 million. I don't know. All right. Well, actually, I do know. I take that back. But you should know, and I'm not telling you. Monotheism is the belief in God. Okay. Now, we also read right here. Let me find it. I found it. The 10 Commandments are mentioned. Well, last time I looked, the 10 Commandments were mentioned right here as well. So we need to highlight that in our standard and highlight it here. Now I'm hoping that you know what the 10 Commandments are because we have already looked at that once in our, it was when we did our guided notes on the back of our map. And if you go back and look, I want you to write down right here in the margin how many commandments dealt with the treatment with, well, let's say with the way you were to treat God. Okay, how many? And how many commandments dealt with the way, whoops, you are to treat others. Okay? Now I'm just going to pull this over so you can see it, because it's yucky over there in that blue. Actually, it's yucky there too, so let's just see this. There we go. Okay, so in your margin, I want you to write down how many commandments dealt with the way you treat God, and how many commandments deal with the way you treat others. Not treat. Sorry. Whoopsie. Okay, now, a commandment, I want you to highlight this as well. A commandment, it's right here, was a rule. All right, it is still a rule. It is a rule. In this case, the Ten Commandments was a rule that God wanted the Israelites to follow. All right? So, the Ten Commandments are a rule. Many nations based their rules and their laws today on the Ten Commandments. Our nation is no exception. Thou shalt not steal. Well, one of the laws is, in our nation, you don't steal from other people. Thou shalt not kill. One of the laws in our nation is you should not murder other people. Okay? So, a lot of nations, their laws are based on the Ten Commandments. Okay? All right, so we've got two things in 6.41 covered, and we've got one in 6.40 covered. All right, let's move right along now. Okay, in the box here, right here, we have persons listed and their role. All right, the person here is Abraham. God promised that his descendants would always control Canaan. Jacob, then, who, if you remembered, Jacob, who was also named Israel, he was Abraham's grandson. His 12 sons became the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay? All right, now the next one is Moses. Moses is the prophet who led the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt, which was called the Exodus. Alrighty? Alright, let's keep reading now here on the land of Canaan. The Hebrew Bible says that Moses died before reaching Canaan. A new leader named Joshua led the Israelites to Canaan. They found other groups already living there. Two of these groups were the Phoenicians and the Philistines. These groups had different beliefs and ways of life than the Israelites. The Phoenicians lived in cities by the Mediterranean coast. They became skilled sailors and traders. Soon the Phoenicians controlled Mediterranean shipping and trade. This helped spread Phoenician ideas. They developed an alphabet to help them trade. An alphabet is a group of letters that stands for sounds made when talking. Their alphabet influenced the Greek and Roman alphabets. We still use the Roman alphabet today. The other group was the Philistines. They came from near present-day Greece. The Philistines made iron tools and weapons. They built walled towns and put together a strong army. Okay, we have 4 questions down the side here, examining the details. All right, I want you to list 3 details that you learned in reading this with me about the 10 Commandments. Once you have that done, I want you to move on to how did the Israelites' beliefs differ from most other ancient peoples. There is one specific thing here about the Israelites that I am looking for. So if you're going to go down here and tell me about how they differed from the Phoenicians and the Philistines, you're not going to get the answer right. You need to look back because there is one specific thing I'm looking for here. And I've talked about it before in class, so hopefully you were listening and you heard that. All right, next question. What challenge did the Israelites face when they returned to Canaan? Okay, they faced a challenge when they got back to Canaan. I want you to tell me what you think that is. All right, and then the next one. How could an alphabet help the Phoenicians trade? Now, if you need any more space anywhere, you can extend your answer out to your margins. You can extend your answer up and over. You can extend your answer down. Whatever you need to do to thoroughly answer these questions. I don't want any cheesy answers where you've written, how could an alphabet help them trade? They can read. No, I need more than that. Come on, man. Get me some slack here. Give me some answers. You've done so well so far on all these units. Come on, knock it out. Alrighty? Okay, when you have this worksheet done, then you're going to move on to this little map. Now, your little map is in black and white. If you want to put color to it, that's totally up to you. The most important thing here is that we are going to trace Abraham's journey. All right, you should recognize some of the places that are on this map, specifically the Tigris River and the Euphrates River, and you should know this area now because this is the land between two rivers known as I hope you got that. All right, and then we have the Arabian Desert here. Came on down. Here is the Sea of Galilee, the Jordan River, and the Dead Sea that you found out is a really cool place that we all kind of like to visit. Okay, and the area that is in between here is Canaan. Alrighty, and then we lead on down to Mount Sinai that you marked on your map. Here's the Nile River Valley. If you know anything about this region, then you know you are in Egypt. And here is the Mediterranean Sea. And oh, bonus if you know this island. Okay, so we're going to start over here in Sumer. So right here in the city-state of Ur. Okay, and you can see this is supposed to be, I think, a ziggurat, which represented the religion of the people in Sumer. However, this man right here, this man, he did not believe in all of these gods that the Sumerians believed in. All right, so that might be what made him different on that question that you had a minute ago on your worksheet. Okay. So, you're going to need a coloring pencil, probably like a bright red, something that's going to be nice and bright that you can see. Alright, if you go back to your standard and you look at standard 6.40, it tells you, where we were talking about a minute ago, tracing the migrations, the movement, where people were going from Mesopotamia to Canaan, later called Israel, and explain the significant roles of Abraham and Moses in their histories. Okay, we've technically done that in this worksheet. Okay, the only thing we didn't do is we have not looked at a map and traced their migration, but we are about to. Okay, now in doing this worksheet and talking about all these things in 6.40, know in my class next week we're going to talk even more about this. So you're going to be doing a chart of some sort that tells us the difference between Abraham and Moses. Alrighty? Okay, just putting that out there so that you know it. Alright, let's move back to our map now. We are going to trace the migration of Abraham and his people into Canaan. So, over here at Ur, take your pencil. Alright, and I'm going to bump this up just a little bit in size. Let's see if this is pretty good. Yeah, that's okay. Alright, we're going to trace where Abraham went. So we're starting with Ur. He made his way northwest up through Sumer. Now this is on your map, okay? I know you might not be able to see it quite as well, but it's there. If you look for it close enough, you will see this little dotted line. Alright, so we're going to keep going. He made his way up through Sumer with his family. He followed by which river? I hope you got it. It's the that's right here. Okay? He's not close to the Tigris. It might look like it on this map, and he might have been right here. He actually was right here. But he came back over northwest next to the river and moved on up to a city-state known as Haran. I think that's pronounced right. Haran? One or the other. Maybe it's Haran. That sounds better. I don't know. Let's go with it. Alright. Now, if I'm not mistaken, and I had paused here for a few minutes to look to see if I could find this in any of your textbooks, but I can't. But if I'm not mistaken, when Abraham got to Haran, he stayed here for just a little bit before he moved on. But now, one of the things you need to remember, as if you remember when we were studying Mesopotamia, these two rivers are thousands of miles long, okay? or we said thousands, I'm pretty sure. Anyways, nonetheless, this was not an overnight trip. He wasn't like, hey, wife and kids, let's go to Canaan. I think we can get there tomorrow if we hurry. No, he traveled this for years, okay? All the way up through here along the Euphrates River into Haran. And when he got here, this was up in the Hittite Empire, all right? So when he got here, he turned south and went southwest into Damascus, all right? When he got to Damascus, he came. This map doesn't show it well. Actually, there's a couple of maps. There's two different ways he says he went, but remember, we don't have Abraham here to ask, so we're having to go with what we think are possible routes. All right, when he got here to Damascus, he kept traveling south into Canaan. Okay, now when he got to Canaan, some people say he came on this side of the Sea of Galilee and went across the Jordan River. When he got to Canaan, he settled there, and his descendants, the Hebrews, lived in Canaan for many years. However, some of them moved to Egypt because they think a famine occurred. Now, if you look back here where we were reading in the land of Canaan, it tells you, let me find it, I'm shuffling papers. Let's see, let me find it. Okay, sorry, it's not over here in the land of Canaan. It's over here in your chart. If you see this, God told Abraham to settle in Canaan. Well, I just told you, he settled here in Canaan. All right, and then it says on the next line, a shortage of food later forced the Israelites to leave Canaan. Okay, they think that a famine occurred there. And when that famine occurred, if you know anything about a famine, you have no food, you have no water, it's a drought, there's nothing to eat. You either stay there and die or you move on. So they moved on into Egypt. Now, when they got to Egypt, they were welcomed to begin with. All right. Now, our map continues us going into Egypt, but we're stopping here in Canaan because this is where Abraham settled. Okay, so when you get to Canaan, I want you to put a star there, because one of the things that we know is that Abraham and his wife Sarah and their family settled in Canaan. Now, Abraham did have a son, and his son's name was Isaac. Okay, he had children, and one of his grandsons' name was Jacob. Jacob, the grandson Jacob, was the head of the household. Abraham died before they moved on into Egypt, okay? Because an angel came and told Jacob, he gave him the new name Israel, okay? Which means one who struggles with God. Jacob's descendants were called the Israelites, all right? Now, let me go over that again. When Abraham got right here to Canaan, they lived there for many years, all right? They settled there. It was called the Promised Land because God had promised this to Abraham. So Abraham and his wife Sarah and their family moved up through Mesopotamia, around the Euphrates River, came up here after going northwest, moved back southwest into Canaan. All right, Canaan, the Promised Land, because it was promised to Abraham. Abraham did have a son named Isaac, and Isaac had children. One of his sons' names was Jacob. Jacob was the one that we read about in the article over here. I think it was. Yep, it's right in here. Jacob was the name when he wrestled with the angel gave him the name of Israel. All right? Well, Israelites, what is the root word? Israel. All right? And if you notice over here, it's in this paragraph right here, Abraham's grandson Jacob was named Israel, and he had 12 sons. They made up the 12 tribes of Israel. All right, now I'm telling you this because I want you to know that even though this map shows you that it looks like Abraham went on into Egypt, he did not. Abraham died in Canaan. his grandson, Jacob, he later led them into Egypt, okay, because of the famine. Now, when they got to Egypt, over here, when they got there, the Pharaoh and the Egyptians welcomed them, but later the Pharaoh became very fearful of them because he was, I guess you could say he was afraid that, whoops, sorry, I kept myself off. The Pharaoh was afraid that the Hebrews, the Israelites, were going to become too powerful. So he turned them into slaves for them, right? So they became Egyptian slaves, which would really stink. I mean, you go over there, oh, welcome to Egypt. We're glad to have you. Yes, we have food. Yes, we have water. You can stay here. Oh, wait a minute. What was I thinking? You know, they might be getting too powerful, a little too big for their britches. Whoops. I'm afraid they might overthrow us. Maybe we should just turn them into slaves. And so they did. And that's when Moses comes into play. Now, I'm actually going to stop the video right there because we're going to do a separate video about Moses. All right? This video was about Abraham. So let's go back here real quickly and review. You were given your standards. This one goes on your map. This one goes on the first half of your worksheet. This one goes on the second half of your worksheet. All right? And you were to have these questions filled out along with the notes that I had written. You're also to have these questions filled out, and we did a lot of highlighting as well, okay? All right, and once you get that done, then you were to go ahead, and we were moving to this map, and we were marked, we traced the migration of Abraham, his wife Sarah, and his family into Canaan, also known as, oh, what? I told you what this one was known as. Okay, God promised Abraham that he would make it to Canaan, so hint, hint. Oh, I might ask you this one in class. Yeah, I think I will. Okay, so as soon as you have that done, you can stop this video and you can move on to the next one, which is a video about Moses. All right, see you, bye.